Welcome to this week's episode of Marketing O'Clock, Off the Clock, where we take a look at the journey of somebody within the digital marketing space. I couldn't be more excited for today's guest, and it's going to be a little bit different this week, as we have an industry veteran who really helped build the SEO community, made it to the top of the profession, and then left at the peak 1 year ago. Welcome to the show, Rae Dolan of AMI House Buyers. Welcome, Rae.
Thank you. How are you doing today?
I am doing fantastic. How is it down in Texas?
It is cold, or at least our cold. It's not y'all's cold. It's our cold down here for the last week.
I hear you on that. So in case you're confused to any listener out there, yes, I did say AMI House Buyers. And Rae, what is the elevator pitch if you are on a very short elevator? What is AMI House Buyers, and what are you currently doing?
So AMI House Buyers, so what am I currently doing? There's multiple things. AMI House Buyers is a company that buys properties off market. So they buy them off the MLS. And so a lot of times what we're dealing with AMI are what we refer to as distressed sellers. So a seller might be facing foreclosure and be 3 or 4 weeks away from auction. There's a multitude of different things that can constitute a distressed seller. And so we work with them and we're upfront with them. We solve a problem that they have and we acquire the property at a discount. These properties usually are in need of work. It's very rare that, they're super nice, well-kept, up-to-date houses. They're usually either very dated or they have very expensive repairs that the homeowners couldn't afford to do long before they stopped paying their mortgage. So, the issues sometimes can compound themselves. And so that's what we do with AMI. And then I also got my real estate license. So I also do standard realtor work. And a lot of times I will offer, if somebody is distressed but has the ability to still sell on market, I'll offer for them to do that, even though it's less money to me at the end of the day. But so the reason that AMI House Buyers acquires these properties is because we either renovate them and flip them, or we keep as rentals, or sometimes we sell the actual contracts. So I put a lot of offers out, and sometimes, I'll have more offers accepted than I realize. And so we get all of our money through private money lenders. So not banks, not hard money, just people that we know they're looking for, a good return on their cash. And so that's how we purchase the houses. But sometimes we end up, all of the money is full and working on other projects, and we'll have a contract come in. So sometimes we sell the contracts too, which in the industry is referred to as wholesaling. But typically the houses are like stray cats to me. I get them and I want to keep them. So.
Okay. Yeah, that was like the best elevator pitch ever. I think you covered that all. And folks, this also is not a real estate podcast, but we're going to get into it. So that's a little disclaimer here. But this is very much a marketing podcast, and we're going to hear why and how Rae is kind of here today. But that's perfect. So it sounds like kind of a little bit all the different facets from flips and wholesaling and buy and hold in the real estate space. And we're going to get to how you got there today. But before we do, Rae, is there one job that people don't know, that any time in your life, is there a job that people don't know you've had?
So it's interesting because I've been self-employed almost my entire adult life. And I know, there's a lot of posts where I mention that I used to be a waitress. So I worked as a waitress at a lot of places. But as far as like that a lot of people don't know, my first job ever was at Dunkin' Donuts, and I couldn't eat donuts until I was probably in my mid-30s because I worked at a Dunkin' Donuts from when I was 15 to 16.
All right. And I know that you are now, I believe, brand loyal to Tim Hortons. So that is something that is a little embarrassing, but that's awesome. Okay. And before, obviously after Dunkin' Donuts, I know that you were started back in the pre-2000 era is when you had initially gotten into digital marketing. And your story is a little different than some others. It wasn't like there were masters in SEO from different universities. What brought you online in the first place back in the 90s?
So originally, I had my first son in 1997. So I have 4 kids, but my oldest was born in 1997. And so he was born perfectly healthy, but he suffered a massive bilateral stroke when he was 2 weeks old. And they never did find out why. But so back then, pediatric stroke was thought to be a lot rarer than they would later find out that it was. And so my dad initially gave me an old office computer of his, so that I could get on the internet and research my son's condition. So that was kind of how I started on the internet, on a dial-up. I was in my, early 20s. Before I ever got on the internet. So through doing that, I ended up, long story short, I founded the first international support group for parents and families of pediatric stroke survivors to ever register with the American Heart Association or the National Stroke Association. So I ran that online for a few years, and I was just trying to find other parents who might need our information. And so in reality, I was marketing, but I didn't know that's why I was marketing, or that's what I was doing. And I remember people would contact me and say they found the page, and I could never figure out how they were finding me, and they were finding me in the search engines. For a long time, I would find articles that I could find about pediatric stroke, and I would link to them from this website. So I had, a resources page, which was basically all the research that I was able to find on the internet. So I kind of created this little mini niche directory category, I guess you could call it. And so, at some point, the national organizations like the National Stroke Association and the American Heart Association, which owns the American Stroke Association, they actually were linking to my website because I had the largest collection of pediatric stroke information, housed in one spot. So I started with that, and that was really taking a lot of my time. And I couldn't hold a full-time job because my son was in and out of the hospital, on a regular basis. And so I said, well, there's got to be a way to make money on the internet. I can do all this other stuff on the internet. There's got to be a way to make money on the internet. And so I looked it up, and I actually didn't find SEO, and I didn't find, what I found was a program called Cognigen. And so they basically had a website called ld.net. But what they did was they sold long distance plans. So that's how old I am in this industry, is back when you used to have to pay to make long distance phone calls. And so they sold long distance plans. And so I thought, I was like, if I can just get the parents that belong to the support group to sign up for long distance plans, then, maybe that'll make it so that I can just spend my time, doing this website and getting this information together. But as I got a little deeper into what Cognigen was and looking at the options, I was like, I don't think I'm really comfortable with crossing the streams and mixing those two. So I went on to the message boards at Cognigen, and I said, hey guys, I found this program. I want to promote it. How do I promote it? And somebody said, well, you need to build a website. And so I said, okay. So I came back a week later and I said, I built a website. And this was, by the way, 20 hours of my life every single day, feeding kids, sitting on my lap at the computer desk, every spare second that I had, I was at the computer desk. And so I come back in about a week and I said, okay, I built this website. What do I do now? And they said, well, now you need to learn SEO. So you're talking, this is late 90s, early 2000s. And so, I come back in a week and I'm like, okay, I put, meta keywords and blah, blah, blah. And I mention all this, cool SEO stuff that I did. And this guy hits me up on the message board, in private DM. And he says, did you really learn all that in the last 2 weeks? And I said, yeah. And he goes, well, I think you're going to be able to do really well in this industry. He's like, so I'd like to be someone that mentors you, and maybe you can come in, because a lot of the affiliate programs had second tier and third tier where you'd get paid off the people you brought in. And so he goes, and maybe you sign up under me for something one day. And I was like, okay. And, unbeknownst to me, the guy that contacted me was actually Mike Mackin, who received the Affiliate Marketing Legend Award from Affiliate Summit a few years ago. So I had no idea who he was at the time, but he reached out to me and he introduced me to some people, and they never taught me how to fish, or sorry, I should say they never gave me fish. They taught me how to fish. And so, really and I tell Mike this still to this day, that that DM changed my life. And Michael always joke back and say, well, you would have done it whether you met me or not. And I said, well, yeah, but, it gave me, he said I would have done it with an anchor around my neck. But I said, but it gave me, this great start. And Mike kind of introduced me to the world over at Webmaster World. And that was where I kind of really started to hone what I was doing SEO wise. And I was ranking top of the SERPs for all these different long distance terms. And then one of the guys that Mike introduced me to is this guy named Rod B. And Rod introduced me to the world of phentermine. And so that was actually the second industry that I ever played around in, and it was the second industry I ever tried to rank in. And anybody that hasn't been in SEO for a long time, back then, we used to joke that, there were the three big industries: PPC, porn, pills, and casino. And those were the three hardest industries to rank in, and they were the three hardest industries. They were full of the most spam in Google's baby days when, they weren't as good at fighting spam. And so what kind of made me known to people in the industry was that I didn't know anything about spamming. I just built websites and did things the way that Google, that people said you were supposed to do, what we would refer to as white hat SEO. And so how I kind of made my name was I was that girl who ranked number one for biphentermine using white hat methods. Nowadays they might be looked at gray hat, but back then they were not, by search engines. So, that's kind of how I fell into affiliate.
And was that approach of saying, I'm going to do this in this, or this white hat format, was that something you had thought through? Was it something you made that conscious decision on, that you were going to take that path?
No, that wouldn't be until, it's interesting because I didn't stay on that path.
Okay.
My entire career. So no, I kind of just, the way that Mike and Rod, the way that Webmaster World was back in the day. I remember one of my big things, and you'll probably laugh at this. One of my big things was I found this post that was it was something like how to do SEO from A to Z. And I remember sending Rod a message on AOL, and I was like, hey, I found this post, is it really accurate? And he was like, he goes, yeah, I think you can trust the guy who wrote it. And he laughed, and I said, well, why are you laughing? And he goes, you don't know who Brett Tabke is? And I was like, no, I have no idea. Who is Brett Tabke? Who's the guy who owned Webmaster World? So, I just kind of used that as a Bible, but where I was good was figuring out link development, right? Figuring out ways to get links that were within their guidelines at the time. So on the phentermine site, I created this ridiculous weight loss journal, which was basically just PDFs. It was a PDF thing of that you could print out and then use to document what you ate for the day. And I don't know, Greg, I don't know how old you are, but back in the day, there were all these free sites that you could go to that would show you free things you could get on the internet.
Oh, yeah.
And so I basically just submitted this thing to tons of free sites. And that was how I was getting all of these links, natural links to the website without paying for them and without doing comment spam and things along those lines. So really that's kind of been my strength. But in 2004, the Florida update happened, which was a Google update. And Google used to update like every 6 to 8 weeks, right? So nowadays, like, man, y'all have no idea how spoiled you are. Like, you can make a change to your website and like 3 days later you can see whether or not it's affecting your rankings. Back then we used to have a thing called the Google dance, and so every 6 to 8 months Google would shuffle its data centers, and whatever the results were when it stopped dancing was what the results were going to be until the next time it shuffled its index. And so if you ranked number one for biphentermine at the end of at the end of that shuffle, that's pretty much where you were going to be for the next 6 weeks, no matter how it was that you got there.
You're going to have a good few months.
So exactly, like you kind of knew, like, I can afford steak. So the Florida update was this update that Google did that just wiped out every one of my sites. Like, all the sites that I spent all this time doing things, according to their guidelines, all of my sites were wiped out, and a bunch of my friends were, spammers, and they were all fine. And so I had no way to know at the time. Google would end up realizing that update actually was a bad update. And so 2 months later, they would roll it back with an update called Brandy, or at least that webmaster role called Brandy. And so they would, all my sites came back in Brandy, but I didn't know that was going to happen when Florida first happened. And so I was kind of like, well, if I have the risk of losing either way, I may as well play fast and loose, because it's way easier to rank and it doesn't hurt as bad when you lose stuff. And when your sites get tanked. So from 2004, I'd say, to like 2006 or 7, it's funny, when I did my retirement post, I had to sit down and like figure out all these dates. But for the next few years, I spammed the hell out of Google, and Yahoo had its own algorithm for a while. And then MSN, I think, was still using Inktomi when I first started spamming, and then they flipped over to their own algorithm shortly thereafter. But yeah, so I spent the next 2 years basically, as we used to jokingly refer to it, spamming and jamming, until I finally realized that Google was making huge progress in the war on spam.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and that to me is one of the things where I know there would always be these panels, and you'd have, some affiliates like yourself, and then some of those other spammer, jammer type folks. And, to me, I always thought of you as that, what you had talked about before with the way to create content in a way that would kind of stand out and work organically. So, you did the dark arts for a few years, and then, after that, you went back, and say a few years afterwards, and focused in on those affiliate sites, and again, doing it according to webmaster guidelines.
Well, yeah, and that's kind of how. So for a while there, I owned the largest prepaid cell phone site on the internet, or I should say the one with the most reviews. So, and that kind of came from, so I'd been spamming for a few years. Google was definitely getting better. I mean, it used to be throw 100 sites against the wall, 90 of them would stick. When we got down to like 40 of them would stick, I was like, okay, this is this is low ROI coming at this point. But there was an industry that I had been spamming in, which was prepaid cell phones, because TracFone had a prepaid, or had an affiliate program for their phones. And I had noticed that like nobody was doing it content, like nobody. I think at the time it was like CNET had a page that had like 4 of the prepaid phone providers like listed on it, but they weren't doing any reviews. And so there was no in-depth content on it, and nobody was doing any reviews on it. And so I said, I think I'm going to create a review site to kind of promote TracFone, because I already knew it was profitable if you could rank, because I had done it with the Black Hat stuff. And so I was Actually, at WITS, which was a conference called Webmasters in the Sun. It was mainly spammers, a few of us that weren't. And so we used to go twice a year. We would go to San Diego, and then the other time we would go to Marbella, Spain. And so I was in San Diego on a boat, talking with one of the guys, a guy named Jimmy, who was a good friend of mine. And so I was telling him this idea that I had. And I said, I want to create this review site. And so, again, to anybody who's super young listening to this, WordPress wasn't really a thing. We had movable type. Definitely weren't any review plugins. There weren't, there was not an easy. I mean, it was a custom code job. That was the only way that you could really create a review site back in 2006. And so. I had said to him, I said, I just, because I knew he had a programming background. And so I said, I'm like a person that doesn't speak a foreign language trying to hire somebody that's an expert in that foreign language. I was like, so like, how much should I be paying for this, et cetera, et cetera. And so, he gives me an amount that I can expect to pay to have the review system I need developed. And I said, well, is that something you can do for me? And he said, he goes, you're my friend, so I'm going to tell you the truth. He's like, you'll be way better off just hiring somebody. He's like, because if you bring me in and I'm involved, he's like, I'm going to want half of the company. And I said, well, I knew he was like really successful in business, and he was a really good person to me. So, and we got along very well and worked very well together. So I was like, actually, I'd rather have you as a partner, and I'd rather, learn what I can from that relationship. And I'm perfectly happy to give up half the company to have you as a partner, because I just felt like he had so much he could teach me. And so we went and started that website. And by the time that we sold it in 2013, it had over 30,000 reviews from people who had used, the various, I think we had like 23 or 24 prepaid cell phone providers. And it was interesting because one of the guys who, he was my first hire at MFE. He worked for me at MFE, and then he moved with me to PushFire. And now he actually works with the SEO team at CBS.
Cool.
And I hired him. He hadn't done any SEO. He had an English degree. He had actually quit his job in a rage and just decided he would find something else. And I hired him on Craigslist. And I think the joke with his parents for the next 7 years was when he was going to go out and get a job because, he worked from home full time. But it was interesting because one year, and again, this is where we took the extra mile, right? So there was this research that came out. It was this market research, and it was $2,500 to buy this market research on the prepaid cell phone industry and demographics and who uses it and blah, blah, blah. And it was this really in-depth research. And so we bought it, and we spent, I should say Joe spent the next several months, really parsing through this information. And so we had all this information coming out that wasn't common knowledge on the web, about the carriers and the providers and the future and mergers and things along those lines. We just had all this information that wasn't anywhere else because you had to pay $2,500 to get the information. And so we actually ended up with an offline column in a print newspaper called the Prepaid Press. And then I sent Joe to a prepaid cell phone conference one year, and I remember him coming back, and he just found it so hysterical that everybody there knew who he was, and he was crazy. We really are the thing for the prepaid cell phone industry. And I'm like, yeah, this is pretty awesome, And so prepaid, that website was making a hell of a lot of money. And Jimmy and I worked really well together. So we were like, well, let's go out and build some other websites and do this in some other industries, which we did. And we formed MFE Interactive, and went on to build multiple other sites. I think at our height, we were doing like 4 million page views a month.
That's crazy.
And so between AdSense, yeah, between AdSense and I mean, it was me, Jimmy's, programmer in wherever he was, and, 2 or 3 guys that worked as like content guys and link builders. And so we had like 4 million page views a month. So between AdSense and then the affiliate programs, which our play was more the affiliate programs, right? And so just different things for conversions. So like on the prepaid cell phone site, every page was built that we had an overview about the provider. And then underneath of that, there would be links. And so it would say like shop for plans, visit their official website. And then AdSense would be listed after that. So my primary focus was the affiliate stuff, like get off my site, go buy something. But if you're not going to do that, by all means, click on the ads.
Yeah. And so it's really was like kind of the first wirecutter.com, where it's being just super helpful, getting all that information, compiling it, and doing this for the user, not necessarily, the search engine, which is awesome.
So yeah, but we also kept an eye on conversions. So like for instance, so on all these, so not every provider that we had on there had an affiliate program, right? I'd say probably half of them did. And all the big name ones did. So, but we put if they were a prepaid cell phone company, they went on the site because again, we were trying to be the complete resource, right? But there were interesting little tweaks that I made that now that I'm out of the industry, I feel more comfortable discussing. But like, so on every provider's page was the provider's logo. Now, if there was an affiliate program, we linked the logo to their website. Oh. If there was not an affiliate program, we would not link their logo to the website. And that came from click tracking studies that just showed us that people kept clicking on the logos. So we're like, well, if there's an affiliate program, we want the cookie dropped on your machine. So like, by all means, like accidentally click and go to whatever that program was. But we didn't want to be, having them immediately exit if if we had no incentive to do so. Then we wanted to keep you on the site longer. We wanted you to hopefully click on one of the ads or click on another provider or, but we still link to shopping for their plans and we still link to their website. Every page was uniform, but it was little tweaks like that. Like, like I said, linking the logos on the affiliate pages, not linking them on the other pages. That kind of helped us maximize, the revenue. My joke back then was Engadget was a huge blog back then. And so Engadget was like everything technology and they didn't do any affiliate marketing. And they were probably like the thing that made me cry myself to sleep at night the most. Because I would always say like, God, just give me the reins at Engadget for like 6 months. And we will be producing so much income via affiliate programs. Like it was crazy. It drove me nuts that site at its height, was not doing any type of affiliate. I don't know if they eventually did later, but I know when they were at their height where like they were the big dog, they were not. And it drove me absolutely mad.
I can hear that today still. Yeah. And we've talked about so far really just a lot of these organic efforts. And, is that mainly how you drove all of the traffic and where the majority of the revenue came from was on the organic side? I know back in the day you could do a little more with paid as well, but did you do mainly standard SEO?
Oh yeah, I was definitely, it was interesting because I considered myself an SEO like up until I'd say like 2009, I don't think I ever really referred to myself as an affiliate. I referred to myself as an SEO. And it was interesting because, and I think that's one of the things that kind of helped me build my reputation was that, that in my experience, a huge portion of affiliate marketing is done through pay-per-click, because it's hard to create, unique content centered around the affiliate program. It's hard to create that content resource that you can monetize through affiliate. And so a lot of affiliate marketing is done through, email lists, email blasts, pay-per-click, etc. And so I 100% did mine through SEO. Actually, that's not true. So there was this time back in, I want to say it was like 2002. And I had a buddy that was killing it on affiliate with PPC, and he like legitimately copied his PPC campaign and said, here, just run it. There's multiple spots. And this was back when it was Overture. And it just wasn't my thing. It was not my thing. I did not have the talent for that. But with SEO, it was like, how like Neo looks and other people see, he sees like the Matrix, and that's me with SEO. Like I loved it. I loved every second of it. I ate it. I breathed it. I slept it. It was all I wanted to do.
You took the blue pill.
Yeah, I did. And I was very much, known as an SEO. I was the SEO who did affiliate marketing. I wasn't an affiliate marketer, so to speak. I think the first time actually that I went to an affiliate summit was in like 08 or 09. And that was really the first time that I had ever been to like an affiliate centric themed, and I was like, holy crap, like there's so many people that do this. But in the SEO community, and I think still to this day in the SEO community, affiliate marketing is misunderstood by probably half the SEO community. Or at least, they only have a very high level working knowledge of it. And so, yeah, I mean, I was straight SEO, and I kind of fell into speaking at public conferences. I had never actually pitched to speak at a conference when I spoke at my first conference. There was
what conference was that?
That they were doing. That was Webmaster World. God, it was in like 04, I think. But it was at I know it was at one of the pub cons. I believe it was in Vegas, but don't quote me on that. But there was a panel that they were doing. They were doing a site review panel. And actually Tim Meyer from at the time, I don't know if he was with Yahoo, but Tim Meyer, who used to be with Yahoo, who now I'm not sure where he's at, but he used to be like the Yahoo rep. And so anyway, he was on this site review panel, and where he was supposed to be, and he had a last minute emergency that he couldn't show up. And I was standing in the hallway talking to somebody, and I see Brett Tabke, who by now I know, and he comes walking out of the door, and he like looks around and he sees me and he goes, Rae, come with me. And I'm like, okay, I'm like following him into the thing. And the next thing you know, I'm sitting on stage being told that I'm going to do a live site review. So that was kind of how I got into speaking at SEO conferences. By the time my career was over, I had done well over 100 presentations, probably closer to 2. And, kind of just fell into it. But I didn't, I did it as a give back because if Mike Mackin hadn't reached out to me in that forum, and if I hadn't found Webmaster World and made all the friends that I did there and traded all the info with the people that I did there, I'm not going to say that I wouldn't be where I was because I'm pretty determined, but I probably wouldn't have gotten there as fast as I did.
Absolutely. And how did that, just getting thrown on stage, how did you perform?
Oh my God. I do not, it's interesting because I spoke a few times after that, and they were always site review panels, which for whatever reason, I was fine with. I was fine with sitting down behind a computer because I'd kind of just block out that there was anybody in the audience. I'm just looking through to see, where they messed up, what they did, et cetera, et cetera. And so the first time that I ever had to give like a speech, like, PowerPoint deck standing at the podium, was at SES, Search Engine Strategies Toronto. And I remember being absolutely horrified, terrified. Like the night before, I swore I was telling Chris Sherman that I wasn't going to speak. It was completely nerve-wracking. And I remember going in, I remember speaking, I don't remember anything that I said. I didn't 5 seconds after my session, I didn't remember anything I said. And so people were coming up to me and they were like, wow, that was a great job. And I'm like, thanks. What did I say? 'Cause I've been, but yeah, that's
Wow.
the first time. But over the years, obviously I got, now I do it and it's second nature to speak in front of large groups.
Well, that's awesome. That's awesome. And that's great that, Brett told you to go up there and you did and went from there. I mean, again, you've helped so many folks with that. So thanks. And so let's just back to the affiliate side of things. It's roughly, let's say, the late aughts. Or late O's, however you want to say that, and things are going good on the affiliate side. You're kind of killing it with MFE, and then you also had started an agency with two partners, and kind of going after both the client side work and also kind of sticking with the affiliate work as well. Correct?
Yes. So I always kept my affiliate sites throughout that entire, thing. As far as even when I owned PushFire, I still had, later on, I still had my affiliate sites. Definitely they were, we used to call it affiliate crack, right? Like once you tried it, you had to have more. So yeah, definitely wasn't something I was giving up. But I mean, I guess it was one of those things, like I would have people contact me all the time and want to hire me to do audits or, to do consulting work for them. And it just wasn't, I mean, there were a few times that I said, okay. And I did some consulting work, but for the most part, I just didn't like having to answer anybody. Like, frankly, I was very spoiled entering the industry as an affiliate, right? Because I didn't answer to anybody but myself. There were no phone calls. If I didn't feel like working that day, I didn't work. So going into, having clients was just, it was definitely not the trajectory that I was like, that's what I want to do, instead of doing whatever I want whenever I feel like it. Actually, the two people that I owned that agency with, they actually decided they wanted to start an agency. They approached me because they knew I was experienced with running a company, which neither one of them had experience with at that time. But they were also kind of looking, branding wise. They just thought that if they partnered with me, that it would give them brand recognition from like the very start. And so, I was okay with that. I was, the initial thing was that I would run the company, but I wouldn't be doing much of the actual client work. And so, we did that, and I don't play well with others. I mean, I've just learned that, over the years, I'm very headstrong. I'm also very, very protective of my reputation. So it is kind of hard to do things in a way, because again, I'm so overprotective of my reputation, that I feel like anything that could possibly tarnish it, is something that I probably get over anxious about, or, over upset about. It's probably a bit of a bottleneck sometimes.
I hear you. And then, I know that you had stepped away there, but started back in was it 2012 when you started PushFire?
Yeah. So I left that agency. I stepped down, and I kind of semi-retired for a little bit. I didn't really know what I wanted to do next. I knew that affiliate was getting harder. I don't want to say, like, I still to this day think affiliate marketing contains a ton of amazing opportunities. But it was kind of getting harder, and it wasn't even that it was getting harder, so to speak, as Google was getting more brash, they were getting bigger, they were getting more corporate by the day. And, I felt like they really didn't care anymore. If they made a change to their results, and John's bike shop, who never did anything wrong, his site got torched. But it made their top 10 results better. I don't think they gave a shit about John's bike shop anymore. I don't think, for me, kind of when Matt left, relations came, and he was still there at that time. But I just kind of like, I don't know, just I had lost my kind of thing for it. Like I just kind of had been there, done that, climbed the affiliate mountain. Then been there, done that, climbed the agency mountain. We did turn that agency into, big brand recognition. So, and I've kind of done both. And I was just like, I'm really bored. And so at that point, I had already met and married Sean. And so Sean had his own agency, Rae Dolan, he's my husband. And so I had met and married him, and I said, I'm gonna take a little bit off because I don't know what's next. I don't know what I want to do next. And I kind of think I knew that was when I started thinking about like, maybe there's something outside of digital marketing. Like maybe I've just been doing this for too long. Like maybe I'm just burnt out and maybe I'm not. And there were times in my career where I would get burnt out and I would take a break for a few weeks and then I'd be fine. But this burnout was different. It felt more permanent. It felt more, when I did finally say, okay, I'm going to come back, I felt like I was going to a job, even though I was self-employed. And so it just didn't, I just wasn't passionate about it anymore. The industry had also fragmented so much, that organic real estate seemed to be going away. There was less fulfillment, I guess, from, really being able to rank someone. It wasn't the, end all be all like it used to be, I guess you could say. And so I just kind of took a break. And then I said to my husband, I said, you know what? I want to retire. I said, I think I'm done. Like, I don't know what I want to do. Well, first I said, I want to retire. And my husband's like, have you met you? You're never going to be able to retire. He's like, you'll be 90 trying to work on something. And I said, well, not retire, like not go play golf. I was like, but I think I'm done, like in the digital marketing space. And so he goes, well, what do you want to do instead? And like, kudos to my husband, because I had a very lucrative career as an SEO and affiliate. And so he's like, well, what are you going to do instead? And I'm like, I don't know yet. And I said, but I do know that I want to kind of start planning for the fact that I want to be out, within the next 3 or 4 years. And so we actually decided to launch PushFire. And from the day that we launched PushFire, we knew that I eventually would no longer be there.
I didn't know that. I didn't know that you knew that all the way back then.
Yes. So we knew from day one that I would eventually no longer be there. What the plan that I had was, and it didn't go exactly to plan, and there were definitely some bumps along the way, and it took more like 6 years before I was gone. But my plan was take all this reputation and brand that I've built, create this new brand, PushFire, use my brand to prop it up in the beginning. We were obviously SEO heavy, clientele-wise. We did SEO and paid because my husband is actually, the paid guy. And so we did SEO and paid, but we were very SEO heavy at the beginning because of my reputation. And so just over time, as we built the brand and we got more and more PPC clients, the plan was, and exactly what we did was, as we got more and more PPC clients, we would rehome SEO clients. So we eventually stopped offering SEO services at all. And we had moved everybody that was a monthly client to trusted partners. And then I was just doing audit work after that. But again, I'm really anal retentive with my reputation. So I just was never comfortable with, white labeling that out or hiring that out. I always wanted to be the ones to do the audits myself. But my reputation, I was working with larger companies, and so they had really good budgets. So, I made a lot still just doing audits. But again, we knew that was just as we built the paid side of the company. But the bigger thing was I didn't know what I wanted to leave for yet.
Right.
I wasn't going to leave for another job. I wasn't going to leave for Yeah, I mean, if I'm gonna do something that I don't particularly like, I'll keep doing the thing that I make a lot of money at. So and we actually had multiple clients in the real estate investing industry. Since Sean actually had them before he even met me, and then he would always be talking about it, and he would always be like, "Oh, we should buy some rental properties, blah blah blah." And I'm like, "Yeah, yeah, yeah, digital, digital, digital." And so we would always talk about it. And so we had this client that was launching like this seminar or something one weekend. And it was on a Friday in Houston. I am a hermit, so I do not like to leave the 5 square miles surrounding my house. And so he's like, "Hey, can you come out to this seminar, to show support for our clients?" And I'm like, "In Houston on a Friday? Are you out of your mind?" But I ended up having a few friends of mine go. And so I was like, "Okay, well, I'll come, but I'm going to stay for an hour. That's it. And then I'm out of there." And he was like, "That's fine." So I went up, I sit next to him, it starts, and it didn't even take me the whole hour. I turned, I looked at Sean, and I said, "I found my new mountain. Like, I found my new thing." It was, and it's so similar to affiliate marketing, like at its core, which is probably why I fell in love with it. I used to say when I was an affiliate that one of the things about affiliate marketing was you only eat what you kill, right? So, if I didn't rank, I didn't make any money. It wasn't like if I didn't rank, I had to explain to myself why I wasn't ranking, and then I still paid myself for another month. It was either make sales or don't eat. And so real estate investing, and real estate in general is a lot like that. I loved the fact that there was a low barrier to entry. Like if you were willing to hustle, and SEO was, and I think still is like that. And so if you're willing to hustle, like, you can become very successful in the real estate industry, same as in digital marketing, and the events. I mean, there's a saying in real estate, and I find it extremely campy, but I'm going to say it anyway, that your network is your net worth. And it was kind of the same way in SEO. I mean, you learned more at the bars at 1 o'clock in the morning at the conferences than you did in the sessions. No offense to anybody who spoke in the sessions, because I spoke in the sessions. And I mean, so they have these real estate events, and like, if people see other people that are hustlers, they've got no problem like teaming up with them. And so, I mean, it had so many similarities, but I was just like, this, like, I love this. And it's pretty funny because we've moved a lot. And so basically what I used to do is I would buy a house, I would get it decorated exactly how I wanted it and perfect. And then I would sell it. And I repeated this process for like 5 years. So my daughter was just thrilled that she was no longer going to be the one moving for me to buy and sell houses, after I remodeled them. So I mean, I went to that seminar and and I looked at Sean, I was like, "You're going to have to go home. I'm staying." So I stayed the whole rest of the weekend. And within 2 weeks, I had our first 2 rental properties under contract. Did it completely wrong, spent a ton of money that I didn't have to spend. But I was hooked, and so it was not even a year later, that Hurricane Harvey hit. And so I was doing the real estate stuff kind of on the side. And so I knew that that's what I was leaving for. But the company wasn't quite ready for me to leave yet, right? We still had some T's to cross and some I's to dot. And so people knew that I was doing real estate. If you followed me on Twitter, people probably realized that I started tweeting about real estate a lot. And so I was kind of unofficially doing it almost full time at that point. But publicly, I was still, quote unquote, Sugar Ray and PushFire. And so Harvey happened, and that was crazy. Our area was hit huge by that, and it kind of opened up. It made a huge opportunity for real estate investors in the area. Once the whole, save your fellow citizens, et cetera, dried down, once the news cameras left, I mean, there were neighborhoods that were just completely destroyed. And one of those neighborhoods was a neighborhood called Bear Creek. And, you know, a lot of people heard about Canyon Gate or other places, you know, in the Houston area. But Bear Creek was kind of like a working class neighborhood that was right next to the Addicks Reservoir. And so the Army Corps of Engineers, they basically thought the reservoirs were going to break. And so to avoid flooding 100,000 homes, they made the decision to purposely flood about 5 to 10,000 homes. And so Bear Creek is a neighborhood right next to the Addicks, and they have 1,200 houses. 800 of them flooded in Harvey.
Wow.
And when I say flooded, Greg, I mean like 4.5 feet of water inside their homes.
I've seen your Instagram account. I believe you when you say flooded.
Yes. Yes. So they flooded. And so it was crazy because where I lived, there were several businesses and stuff that flooded. Don't get me wrong, where we lived, right? Mm-hmm. But within a month, I would say, you know, other than the occasional rebuild here and there, I mean, everything was pretty much cleaned up in most of my area and where I was. But Bear Creek, like 6 months after Harvey, still looked like a war zone. I mean, there was still drywall and trash all over the streets and the lawns. You would drive down a street and it was like a ghost town. Like there would be 50 houses on a street and like 2 RVs and that's it. Like there was no one else to be found. And so real estate investors, I mean, yeah, there was an opportunity for us to make profit, but I mean, who else is going to buy a house that took on 4.5 feet of water, has to be gutted to the studs and rebuilt, right? So I had no idea what I was doing. I had no idea how to rehab a flood house, but I met a woman who was 72. She was living in the house with her 3 granddaughters. They lost everything. They got out with a backpack each. And she looked at me and she had actually contacted Sean because Sean, throughout Hurricane Harvey, was in the Cajun Navy. So he was doing water rescues. And so she had, you know, somehow come into contact with Sean while he was in the Cajun Navy. And, you know, something was said about real estate investing, blah, blah, blah. And so she later contacts him on Facebook and says, hey, you know, I have this house. Do you guys want to come out and buy it from me? So we went out and like I walked through this house and it's bricks and studs, like, and a roof. That's all it is. And you know, I just said, I really don't know what I'm doing, but we're going to find out. I kind of just jumped and bought this flood house that needed a $60,000 renovation. And, you know, I definitely learned that house. I did well on that house. I ended up being able to keep it, refinance it, put renters in it. It cash flows about $400 a month and awesome. I paid my lenders back. And I didn't have to put any money down on the house. So that was what they refer to in the industry as a BRRRR. So I didn't have to put any money in and I basically got a free house for my time of rehabbing it. You know, I learned some stuff, made some mistakes. And then the guy next door came up to me and said, well, do you want to buy my house too? So I ended up buying his house. You know, it's a year and a half later and I'm still getting calls from people that I initially met back there asking me if I want to buy their house. You know, because some of them have waited this long to decide whether or not to rebuild or move on. So I mean, it was crazy. So I flip. I buy and hold, I wholesale, I do something called wholetailing, which is basically you buy the house, you actually close on it, and then you do something minor like clean it out so that there's no trash in it, right? Or just replace the carpets or, you know, something lower end, you're not doing a whole renovation. And so that's referred to as a wholetail because it's half wholesale, half retail. But yeah, so I mean, like right now I've actually got my little whiteboard behind me. So I bought a house that burned down that is almost finished being rebuilt and that'll go on the market in 2 weeks. I have another house in the near north side that is currently in rehab. We're rebuilding that one from the studs up. I have another one that's a hold that I just bought that the owner is actually in leaseback. That will be a wholesale. And then I am closing on one tomorrow. That will be a full remodel. I just sold 2 on Monday of this week. And then I'll be closing on more next week. So at any given time at this point, I'm flipping 4 to 5 houses.
Wow.
And right now we have 5 rental properties. So
That's incredible.
but I plan to add a lot this year. So yeah, and I mean, I'm a year and a half in, a year full time. But I mean, I love it. It's what SEO used to be to me back in 2001, 2002. I mean, when I wake up in the morning, I want to get on my computer. I want I mean, like, I like spend time in Home Depot. Like most girls want to go to the mall. I get my kicks out of going to Home Depot. So
Nice.
yeah,
And
I love it.
you answered exactly what I was going to ask. I was going to ask if that passion for digital marketing has transferred over. And I mean, it sounds like it has, and then some. And then, I mean, the other thing that I can feel just from talking with you is that creativity that you had before, and just ways to come up with unique solutions. That also is a really nice parallel with digital marketing and SEO, and again, just figuring out the solution and what works for a certain property, which sounds amazing.
Yeah.
It's and you
there's
quit.
there's so many solutions.
Yeah, exactly. And again, I was going to ask what type of real estate you're in, but it sounds like everything, which is awesome. And it's been a year since that happened. I believe you officially put in the public retirement in March of 2018. Do you miss SEO at all? Do you miss digital marketing at all?
I know that people want me to say yes. I miss the people. So do I miss getting to see people at conferences, here and there? Yes. But I mean, as far as I kind of feel like, here's how I feel about SEO. I feel like it's an ex-husband that I'm very glad I was married to, but I'm very glad I'm no longer married to. I don't know how else to explain it. I mean, I wouldn't trade a single moment that I spent in SEO. I mean, even the times when I ended up with egg on my face, there's not a single moment that I would trade in SEO. But I'm so glad to have moved on to something else. So I guess the short answer, unfortunately, is no, I really don't.
Fair enough. And if you want to follow Rae on any of those real estate ventures, you can find her at amihousebuyers.com, and also Buying Katie, as you are also a certified realtor, correct?
Yeah, and that's actually one of the plays when you were talking about like creative marketing. That's one of the plays when we're working with people in foreclosure. Is I am actually the way I put it to people is that I specialize in time sensitive sales, but I've kind of created the aspect of a real estate agent dealing with time sensitive sales. So I mean, not created it. I'm sure there's other people, but as far as it's not really a widely known thing. So it's kind of this little niche that I'm working with that allows me to, pick up clients whereas other realtors, it takes them several years of being a realtor to build up clientele. But, I've been able to do it fairly quickly because I can, one, I'm great at negotiating. So it's like, I can, I put these people's houses on the market and I'm smart and I know what to look out for. And it's kind of a double-edged sword, right? Because most of the time, people that are in time-sensitive sales, so meaning they're going to get foreclosed on or they're somehow going to lose their house, people that are in time-sensitive sales, most of the time, it's going to be an investor that buys their property, right? Mm-hmm. So one of the things that I like about being able to, and there's all sorts of, don't get me wrong, like, I'm a legit real estate investor, but there's plenty of, I guess the best way to put it so that SEO would understand it is there's plenty of black hat realtors. Mm-hmm. And so, I'm definitely a white hat realtor. So there's ways that, all sorts of ways, all sorts of tricks that not so legit investors can pull that will end up, resulting in these homeowners ending up in foreclosure. And so one of the things that I pitch to people is because I am an investor, I know what those tricks are. And I make sure that if a client lists on the market, on the open market, that the investors, that the offer is the best possible offer that they can get. and that it's free of any of those common loopholes or clauses that investors will try and stick into contracts to kind of, protect themselves against, getting in trouble for not performing. But if they don't perform, the homeowner ends up at auction. So yeah, it's just, creating solutions, and it just gives me something completely new to learn. So
fantastic. So check those out. We'll talk about it at the end as well. And then if you have time for a quick lightning round, I've got a few quick questions to have you answer. And first off is there a book or a blog post or a site that has the biggest impact on you in your career, both real estate and digital marketing?
Oh, easy. The E-Myth Revisited. That was Jimmy, my partner in MFE, told me that I had to read that book. It had the biggest impact on my business life of any book that I've ever read. And if somebody wants to be an entrepreneur and somebody wants time wealth, that is the book I would recommend reading. To this day, it is the most, I read it probably in 2006, and to this day, it's been the most impactful on my career.
Yeah, and I think they came out with a real estate version too with Than Merrill from that TV show. So a few different versions out there, but that's a great book.
Oh, I didn't even know that. I didn't even know that.
All right, what was the biggest mistake you made throughout your digital marketing career?
Oh my God, that would be my mouth and my inability to let things go. You got to remember, I was like 20 when I got into this industry, right? So I had a lot of stuff to learn, and I'd say the biggest mistake was, one, caring what anybody else said, and two, wasting my time with things that, it's funny, I created like a little poster years later, and the poster says something along the lines of, does it make you money, increase your happiness, or improve the world? If not, don't do it. And that would be my biggest mistake, is I spent so much time wrapped up in things that now, 20, 15, 10, 5 years later, that I don't even remember and couldn't care less about. So, kind of just staying focused. Don't let the the social, high school popularity, et cetera, side of it distract you. I mean, just head down, stay focused, do the parts of the work that you love, outsource what you don't, and don't sweat the small stuff.
Great answer. All right. And then, in your opinion, what is the most important factor for building a successful business?
Oh, being willing to be wrong. Being willing to be wrong, and being willing to admit that your way might not be the best way. Knowing where your weaknesses are. And that's something that it took me a long time to learn. But just being able to put your ego aside, and look at it completely detached, and being willing to hear other ideas that aren't your own, and being willing to look at other processes that aren't ones that necessarily you think might work the best. But I think just being willing to be wrong and to admit being wrong. I know that sounds like, but that's something that I think is a rare quality in, the types of people that tend to become entrepreneurs tend to be, type A personalities, pushy people. And so I think, being able to admit that you're wrong, or just admit that there might be a better way than your way.
Absolutely. And then last up, I'm going to make you give me an answer here. What is your favorite type of real estate? You've talked about buy and holds. You've talked about flips. You've talked about BRRRR, which is buying, rehabbing, refinancing, and then repeating. If you had to choose one, what do you love the most with real estate?
So I'm going to can I give you like an answer and a half?
Yes.
So the first answer would be, I definitely think I like flips the most out of real estate when it comes to just straight up the type of real estate, like as far as the house itself, like my exit strategy. So when it comes to exit strategy, flips. when it comes to acquisition strategy, I work with a lot of people that are heading into foreclosure, and being able to pull people like back from the jaws of foreclosure is extremely fulfilling. I actually have somebody who is sitting in closing right now, who they came to me. They had a house. They lost their son in a motorcycle accident. 4 months later, Harvey destroyed their roof. So they didn't get any ground flooding, but their roof fell in, and then it rained in their house for 5 days. They were an old couple. They didn't know what to do with the insurance agency. The insurance agency paid them out $16,000 for a completely destroyed house, which should be criminal in my opinion. And so they weren't able to fix the house. So they had to leave the house. And so then they have this house that they can't get rid of, or that, they thought they couldn't get rid of. And so long story short, they ended up in foreclosure. They didn't know what they were going to do. I found them a week before foreclosure. I put their house under contract. I sold the contract to another investor. I am making a whopping $240 as an assignment fee. But these people are not going to lose their house. And
That's
they're
awesome.
not going to have foreclosure on their record. Somebody else is buying the house and is going to take over it. And the money that they got from the insurance that the mortgage company has been holding hostage because they didn't have enough money to fix the whole house will actually be refunded to them. So, and I told the daughter, because she said that, they really believe that the son brought me into their life. And I said, she said, are you at least going to make some money on this? And I said, not everything's about money. Sometimes karma pays you back. And so when I get the ability to help somebody that really needed a break, and I am able to come up with a creative solution that allows them to get one, that is probably my favorite thing about what I do in real estate investing.
Well, that is quite the way to end it here in the lightning round. And thank you so much for coming on the podcast, the show today. To find more information, you can see all of Rae's work over the past years on sugarrae.com, and that's SUGARRAE. We'll have links to everything in the show notes. One of my favorite posts maybe ever that is on there, and that was a post you had, 11 things my son taught me about life and business. We'll link right to that. It is a must read for everybody listening today. You are also currently an advisor still at PushFire, which is that digital marketing agency that you're still, that is operated now by your husband, Sean, and that's pushfire.com. And then if you are looking for any of those solutions that Rae talked about, you can find that the real estate, or realtor side on buyingkatie.com. And then if you want to see if you're one of those folks that are in a pickle or just looking to offload a property, you have amihousebuyers.com. Did I miss anything on there?
Nope, I think you got it all.
Okay, and then where's the best place for people to follow along? I know you've got some great photos and you can tag along and see exactly what you're doing currently. Where should people go to follow along?
So me as an individual human being, I'm on Twitter as @SugarRae, SUGARRAE. When it comes to like the real estate ventures, Instagram @AMI Housebuyers.
All right, and that does it for today's show. Thank you so much, Rae, and we will see you next week.